Hello and welcome back to First Act, a podcast from Koshy's Business Builders. I'm Cess Busby.
And I'm Adam Bubb.
Thanks for joining us again. We absolutely love diving deep into the surprising backstories of Australia's most fascinating entrepreneurs.
There's always a surprising nugget of wisdom in each podcast, whether it's how a mover and shaker has come up with a big idea, what ideas didn't work, and how they've personally handled the ups and downs of success in business and life. Cess, today's guest is
Sharon Williams. Sharon is one of Australia's most accomplished marketers. She has almost 3 decades of experience in the business and is an absolute powerhouse and pioneer in the marketing and PR industry. She's known as a leading expert in personal branding. She's a motivational speaker, media commentator, and a mentor to both CEOs and university graduates. Her agency, Taurus Marketing, has represented more than 1,000 brands over 4 continents, and she's a sought-after business and brand builder. And we are so delighted to have her on First Act today.
Lovely to see you both. Thank you.
Sharon, we are thrilled to have you with us today. We always start with our First Act icebreaker on this podcast, so listeners can get a sense of who you are, and your icebreaker for today is, what is the one word you want banned from marketing?
Oh gosh, I think the word marketing itself.
Why is that?
Let's find a new word for marketing because it's just so naff. And I think people groan. It's a bit like sort of HR. It's just so much more exciting than the word marketing.
Well, I mean, HR has had a bit of a rebrand over the past few years. It's very people and culture, happiness officer. Like, there's all kinds of names that come up now in the HR space. What would you propose as better than marketing?
I've thought of that so many times because with the word marketing in my company name, Taurus Marketing, I always think it's so lame because we do such amazing things and marketing sounds so generic. I mean, business strategists, success makers, growth meters, KPI winners, bonus payers. Marketing should be all of that. So I haven't come up with a word yet, Adam, but we should work on that one.
Success makers.
Yeah, I was quite liking success makers.
Yeah, I like that. You find a lot of those kind of roles. Also, customer service has kind of been reframed, especially in startup land, as customer success. And I'm seeing a lot of director of customer success, which used to be customer service, because service sounds a bit, there's something about that sounds a bit, that sounds a bit tired. So I like the positivity. Language can really make that difference, can't it?
It really can. And the methodology that we created was all about the bullseye and hitting your bullseye, which doesn't have anything to do with marketing in a way, in that phraseology. So, certainly, I think marketing exists to grease the wheels of allowing business to get where it wants to go and hit that bullseye.
Well, you've already hit the bullseye on where we were going with that, with the next part as we kick off your first act. That no bull approach, that's a big part of your brand and what you offer at Taurus, and obviously the bullseye is an embodiment of that. Where did that no bull approach come from? Was it something that you had with you from your childhood?
Yeah, I think it's me. I think it's who I am. So when I was thinking of naming the company Taurus, it's the first word that popped into my head. And I am a Taurian, but I don't really follow star signs. And I looked it up, and a Taurian is steadfast, tenacious, earthy, loyal, stubborn. and that no bull kind of, I remember looking at my husband at the time and saying, Taurus, no bull. And he went, marketing, load of bull. And he's an IT guy. And I just thought that was really good, really solid to be able to have a reflection of looking at oneself in a light-hearted way. And also there's so much, if you think of marketing and PR, there's so much bull. There is so many words around the creation and activity that comes with that. How many people are actually really delivering on what that's supposed to do? So I liked the association with meeting a target, meeting a bullseye, and in a no-bull manner. So calling a spade a spade.
Let's take a little step back because I can hear that English accent there, and I'm sure our listeners can. So you grew up in England. You went to an all-girls school. Can you tell me how you think that might have shaped your confidence and your abilities to achieve by attending an all-girls school?
Yes, yes, thank you. And I've got an interesting slant there because the school that I went to as a child was run by my great aunt and my grandma.
Oh, wow.
They actually founded the school. So I, from a little girl, Nana lived next door. She was Mrs. Williams at school. She was the deputy headmistress. And my great aunt Marjorie Daw, we used to call her Auntie Marjorie Daw because of the nursery rhyme, was Miss Roberts, very strict, who was the headmistress. So I had Nana and Auntie outside of school and Miss Roberts and Mrs. Williams in school. And the teachers who were Mrs. Joan Arnold, who was history, was Auntie Joan, in the school holidays. So my schooling was very, very influential in my life. All girls, yes, was good and bad. The fact that I was the niece of the headmistress wasn't always helpful. The fact that it was a school that was a small private school that people went to who could afford it. My family, my single mother would not have been able to afford to send me there. I went there because it was a family school. So huge influence on my life for all sorts of reasons. Looking at female role models, believing you could be anything. Why wouldn't you believe you could be anything? I was surrounded by teachers and pioneers in the 60s and 70s. And had a working. Mum was a professional working mum, so I had a working mother as a role model too,
Which was also probably not that common at the time.
That's right. She was actually head of personnel at Nestle factory in London, and then Lions Maid, and was going to work heading up a factory of 5,000 people on less money than the men working alongside her. And Mum and Dad divorced in 1969 when I was 4 or 5, and there was no Property Act in England. So when you divorced, the woman had nothing. So yes, times have changed, considerably since then. But when I look back, I don't know how my mother did it. I do not know how my mother did it. Mind you, I look back on what I've done. I don't know how I've done it. But Mum certainly had a harder road than I've had.
So then you had like a very strong network of powerful women around you at the time. What made you want to leave the UK, leave that behind and start afresh in Australia?
I left England because I got married to my children's father, Guy, and we worked for the same company, an IT company in London. I was marketing. He was very, very high up in the technical side, and we were hoping to be positioned down in Australia, in Sydney. It was my dream, and it fell through. So we'd already rented out our apartments and wanted to go. So we said, right, we're going to go anyway. And so we had a party in Russell Square, went to Harrods and bought a couple of rucksacks and had a party and said goodbye, issued our family with a map and said, we'll see you in a year and we're going to go around India and around the world and come back. And we've never got home all these years later. So we went all the way around India, backpacked second-class aircon together as a young married couple, no children, very precious, those experiences, did it really well together. Then in India, the company asked us to go to Hong Kong and set up the Hong Kong office. And we sort of thought, oh, that wasn't in the plan. Okay, we'll go for 6 months and try it. And we ended up being there for 2 years. And I know instead of arriving with the rucksacks, we then transferred down to Sydney finally, and we ended up shipping about 35 boxes of beautiful Chinese china and all the stuff that you accumulate when you set up home and land somewhere with 2 rucksacks and leave 2 years later. And I had a fabulous 2 years in Hong Kong setting up all the distributors for this company, Sign On, and working alongside my husband. And then we came to Sydney to the dream that I've been dreaming of. I've been dreaming of coming to Sydney since I was a little girl, or to Australia. All my kindergarten projects are kangaroos and marsupials and drawing the outline of Sydney. And I've still got those books.
And they're clearly just bouncing all around the parks of the harbour, and they're everywhere you see, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Look, I think I love that kind of that idea of adventure and the way that you have plans and visions for what you want your career to look like, and the fact that it is sometimes those well, in a lot of cases, it's those off the beaten track moments that kind of lead you somewhere else. That is life's adventures.
Yes, and I've had a lot of those, Adam. I had lots of twists and turns from the age of about 18 to when I settled at Sign-On at about 23, 24. So I did lots of different things in that period.
What would you say were the main sort of differences culturally from working in the UK and even working in Hong Kong as well to working, in Australia?
The huge cultural differences. So having been brought up in London in what I realise now is quite a fast pace, and loving London. I mean, it's my hometown, London. I know my way around London in a big way. Left when I was in my mid-20s. Hong Kong, faster, furious, looks different. People look different. The language signs, the language looks different, sounds different, and travel very similarly is easy from that hub, from London and from Hong Kong all around. And then I remember coming down to Sydney, and Guy and I arrived and ended up in the Pennant Hills, in the Country Comfort at Pennant Hills. And I remember we went to the bank, as you do, because you've arrived in a new country, and there was someone in front of me with no shoes on and a slip, like a vest. And I remember just thinking, oh, my goodness, they've come into a bank with no shoes. and now I'm so Australian, that story doesn't even resonate with me. But I remember thinking, oh, how could they have come into a bank where in London you were dressed, a bank was somewhere like when you went to the doctor's, you had your Sunday best on. And also I remember going to the manager that we were going to report into, and I walked into his mansion in Pennant Hills, and as he greeted us at the door, I was sent to the kitchen with his wife, and then my husband and he went to the balcony. So there was an immediate division between us, the girls and the guys, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting because that's not the case so much these days. Still remnants of it. Was that also something you encountered in your career in those early days?
I've had a very lucky career in terms of I've always been around great people and been able to navigate those situations. So I've been very supported by men and women in my career. But predominantly back in the 80s, I was working mainly with men. And now in my company, although I work with women every day, most of our clients are male, probably 80% of them are male. And I think it's a case of be the change you want to see. You almost don't have to talk about it, you just walk it. And if you walk it, people around you become it.
So you weren't hampered by your gender when you first arrived in terms of opportunity?
That particular question, when I fell pregnant, my boss at the time immediately looked at me and said, well, you'll be leaving then. And this was in 1995, not 1980.
Jeez.
So he actually saw my career ending when I had my firstborn.
Like, you think that kind of comment might have been, 1950, 1960, 1970, 1995?
It was his loss and my gain, because his competitor, who heard about me, reached out and asked me to work with him. So I waddled in 9 months pregnant and met Peter Kazakos of the Kaz Group and ended up contracting for him. He said, have the baby. You don't quite know what, your firstborn. Have the baby and then come back and see me. So I pushed Charlotte in 2 weeks later and started contracting with him. And that was when Taurus was born. So.
Yeah, that brings me nicely to the question I was about to ask you, which was, what was the plan and kind of what were you thinking starting a business with a baby that's just a few weeks old?
Yes. Taurus was registered on the day she was born, August the 21st. I actually did it from the maternity ward with the laptop on my lap. And I don't at that point think I knew I was going to build something, but I was more short-term focused in supporting my husband to contribute to a family. So I like nice things. I don't like wealthy things, but I like nice things. I like pretty things. And so if I wanted holidays and I wanted nice cars and I wanted a nice home, then I felt that I had absolutely joint responsibility to work and make that happen. And I'd seen my mother work around having children, and I was absolutely no doubt in my mind that I would be working and contributing to build a life in Australia. And then Taurus was registered, and then Taurus grew and built. And sometimes I think that I have to catch up with Sharon Williams and Taurus because it's happened and it's been amazing and wonderful, but we're still in it. We're still, every day you have to earn your right to be a business, and you have to earn your right to be a leader. And it's an ongoing journey, and you never actually get there. And the minute you've got there with one objective, there's another thing that you have to battle through, or you have to reach for.
How do you kind of find that sense of personal harmony with yourself? Because we do live in this culture where you are taught that you're always striving for something and you haven't quite got there yet. When, like you were saying, Sharon, like you have actually achieved so many incredible things, but you don't really see it because you're already looking at what the next thing is. How do you achieve that sense of, oh, maybe I have, that equilibrium maybe?
Yeah.
And do you have time to celebrate the successes?
Yeah, what a great question. I've been brought up to think that life's hard work, and I've watched hard work. So hard work is a norm. Yes, taking time out to smell the roses hits you. When I lost my sister at 32, lost my half-brother 6 months later. I've had experiences with breast cancer. I think those things in life, those hiccups in life, make you stop and realize that you really do have to smell the roses and take time out. And I'm quite good at doing that. Like I try and get up early every morning and go for an ocean swim. And that's my time for me, that hour. I create lots of memorable moments with my children. We have a quarterly holiday away together. We have roast dinners together. We do things together. So I do think it's important for your listeners to realize that they're not victims in this roller coaster of work, but they've got to take responsibility to have time out.
Mm. Now, you briefly touched on it. You have faced some personal tragedy at a young age, the death of your brother, your sister. Like, how do you think those losses impacted who you are today?
I think our personal experiences impact and shape us tremendously. So when Lisa died, who was 32, she's my only sister and my younger sister, I think the pledge was, Lisa, I won't waste a minute. I'll live the life that you should have had. She was full of goodness, my sister. And so I've also pledged to try and remember her goodness. And so she's guided me to live a life that I hope she would have wanted me to have. My little half-brother, who died at 16 from bowel cancer, Lisa died on his birthday and he died 6 months later. He never got to experience healthy life beyond really the age of 14. So one has to, when one's feeling a bit overwhelmed or down, remember that you've got this gift of life and you shouldn't really be moaning about it. You should actually be making the most of it. And I am a half cup full person, and I do wake up most mornings optimistic. I think the last year's been very hard. I've lost my mother. But on the whole, I wake up every morning bursting with, can't wait to get to it. So those experiences have shaped me. And then breast cancer, I was just about to turn 50, and 50 is the new 40. And I was successful and hot and about to have the best sort of decade, and bang, something's going to come along that affects my sexuality, that affects my physical appearance, that is threatening that I could die. So, yeah, that all goes towards, I think, shaping you as what you become.
Yeah, I mean, as your breast cancer diagnosis, facing your own mortality like that, it's just a very humbling moment, I think.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, what do you think that specifically taught you about yourself?
All I can visualize while you're asking me that is lying on my knees on the carpet in the hallway when no one was home, screaming at the top of my voice. Because what happens with when you get a life-threatening disease is the fear is more frightening than the disease. So the fear of what's going to happen. At the time, I really wanted to see my son through school. I wanted to pay for his education through school. I wanted to get him through to his HSC. I wanted to see him through that. I was looking after my mum. And then the fear of what decisions to make, surgery, not surgery, chemo, not chemo, radio, not radio. Do you let them take your breasts, or do you gamble? Do you take a risk? I've already said I love beautiful things, and I think I have a beautiful body. And I'm blessed that, whereas lots of people, I mean, there's lots of things about my body that aren't right, but geez, why waste time moaning about it? I've got this whole body that I'm gifted with, and breast cancer threatened to attack that and change it. And I'm a swimmer, and the balance that would have, the way your clothes sit, and I love clothes, and so my silhouette was about to be affected, as well as my life could be over. So what did it do? It made me focus on, I guess, the outcomes of treatment. And I think I already had a good view of what was important to me in life, because I'd already lost Lisa and Owen.
So that experience of loss, that impacts you both, personally, all those experiences of loss, but then you've also got to run a business at the end of the day too. What challenges kind of came up for you in kind of like keeping that afloat while you were really where you needed to prioritize your own health and health of those around you?
Gosh, Adam, yes, you're bringing back all sorts of memories. So one of the biggest...
Sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, I suppose you try and sort of put it at the back of your head so that you can cope with each day. At that time, 2014, my first diagnosis, my team stepped up, but I didn't miss a beat. I had radiotherapy every morning before work. I swam in the sea to try and ease the burns. I had lumpectomies instead of surgery, and my team wouldn't have even seen me miss a beat. I might have been a bit late in on some mornings. The second diagnosis, I had decided to move from an office in Artarmon to the city, to George Street. And I was going in that day to sign on a 2-year lease, four-year lease, in a very glamorous office on George Street. And I was signing a $250,000 lease with no break clause on it. And then I got a second diagnosis that things were even more serious, and therefore I was now in a life-threatening situation. So I may have 6 months to live, but I was just about to sign on a $500,000 lease that would, if I died, would leave my children with a $500,000 debt. And I remember my lawyer saying, well, ask the landlord if you can have a break clause. And he came back with a response, I'm not a beep charity, I'm a business, there's no break clause. So I had to actually sign the lease knowing that I may not be around to see it through. Now, that's a business. That's a direct business impact from a life situation. So I then had to go, right, well, I better live because I've got to pay the lease. And then fronting up every day when you're shaking and frightened because death is looking you in the face, and having to cope with each day is a distraction and a great thing. And is also, it's tough. It's tough.
Thank you for your candor while talking about some of these experiences.
Maybe it will help someone else that's going through it, because there are very big days of darkness with a breast cancer diagnosis, and the fear is horrendous. And navigating the multiple medical advice is, I met with 23 surgeons. I went on holiday and met with people to advise me, and I ended up doing everything against they said to do. So I took high-risk gambles. And someone out there now dealing with this, they'll be in a lot of darkness. They'll be in not a good place. So if I can help by suggesting that you will get through it, and go with it and hold responsibility for your own body and your own decisions, then hopefully that will pull someone out of a dark moment, because it is dark. It's really dark. But there's a light. There is a light.
It's always a light.
Thank you. We'll be back with Sharon Williams after a very short break. We're back with Sharon Williams. Thanks again, Sharon, for joining us. Now, a little bit of a lighter topic here. Your daughter, she used to work with you in the business, yes?
Yes, Charlotte. They've actually all worked in the business for a period. And yes, Charlotte was with me for 3 years.
Yeah, how is that, working with family?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm so proud of her. I could burst. It was absolutely wonderful, like the best of the best. I'm sure for her it was a bit frustrating because she wanted to change everything in a day. And when you're running a business for that long, there's things that you need to modernize and bring up to speed. And of course, you've got this lovely young thing that wants to change the world in a day. So I know she used to get frustrated that we weren't going fast enough for her. But she was responsible for putting in whole new systems and CRMs and ways of doing things that were just extraordinary. No, she's terrific. And she could do anything and everything. She was able to be an octopus and pick up anything in the business and run with it. And I was hugely proud of her for doing that. And we were only having dinner the other night and saying that it gave her a lot of grounding for what she's doing now. And she also went to acting school. So she is actually an actress.
So is she in marketing now, or is she acting is her 100% her game?
She's gone into sales.
Ah.
Where she says, Mummy, I use my acting every day. And then I use my experience with you in understanding what business leaders need to sell. She's selling a mental health app. So she says that she understands what business leaders need because she was with me and has seen me. Well, they've all watched me since they were growing up. So,
Do you think she went for something in mental health because she's seen how important it is to have good mental health from the process your whole family's gone through with the diagnosis?
Yes, possibly, and maybe more so during COVID and seeing what people went through during the pandemic, because she immediately left me to go to an IT in sales in IT, and then moved to get a job with Unmind, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it, and has purpose. She actually wants to be a paramedic for a while, so I think this is fulfilling a bit of her medical feeling as well.
So you touched on COVID, and we've talked a bit about mental health, on this podcast, but the marketing sector was hugely affected by COVID. How do you think your Taurus, what was the thing that you were guiding principle that got Taurus through that pandemic?
I like to think, Adam, that when I think of the business, I'm running the business, and therefore the business is important, and marketing is what we do. Comms was very important through COVID, so marketing and comms was something people needed. So we had a bit of a hiccup and a downturn at the beginning when people were thinking the world was going to end, as we all did. We all thought the world may end. And there was a little downturn, and then it started to climb back up again. And we've hired, triple people this year. So really, the pandemic, when it hit, my priorities were to keep the staff employed. My job was to keep everybody employed. I went on no salary, and made sure that nobody was made redundant and we didn't lose anybody. And that was my pride. My absolute pride was we're going to be in this together. We're in a war, and we're going to see this through. So it was very much holding those people afloat, whatever they were doing. Homeschooling suddenly with young children. We had social Zooms every Wednesday. We had 1:00 clubs for clients. It was what do you need to get through this? It's setting them up at home so they could work comfortably. Being on the phone came back as being a medium. A phone is so underrated. To actually phone someone and say, "Hey, how are you?
Yeah,
let's walk for a bit on the phone and talk."
Well, like you touched on you said you're doing 1:00 clubs with clients. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because keeping clients during that time was a really hard thing. You can't take them out for lunch. You couldn't have done any of that sort of stuff that you'd normally do in the marketing industry.
Yes. So that was 1:00 to 1:30 Teams. A shout out to our customers, mainly CEOs and marketing directors. If you want to come online for half an hour, 1 till 1:30, we're going to shoot the breeze on what's important this week. And I think we forget what that was like at the beginning. The pandemic, we were in war. We were at war, and we actually were fighting to keep people alive and safe. I mean, literally, we were trying to keep them make sure they stayed alive. And so what happened is we had people join us for half an hour, and we would, Chatham House rules, discuss the issue of the week in that half an hour. And we solved problems, and we shared, and we've all got the same problems. Every business always has the same problems. It's just big problems or little problems, little business or big business. And so we solved the problems. And then when the pandemic started to slow down and we were all getting back to work, we missed that half an hour. So I turned it into a physical lunch where we have, in our beautiful boardroom at Barangaroo, we have that network come for lunch, a bit longer than 1 till 1:30 now, and we shoot the breeze on those topics. Deals are done, and we progress the people. This is why I think marketing is such a silly word. We sit in that lunch, and people do deals over lunch. And people help each other accelerate their businesses over lunch.
Success maker.
Success maker.
Chief success maker, that's right.
Bullseye maker.
If I had to describe you, which I kind of mentioned to you earlier, I would say that you're strong, independent, astute, kind, and very generous. And I'd say that's pretty good personal branding. So, as someone who's a pioneer in the personal branding space and has been doing personal branding for years, long before it became, the buzz thing that it is today, what do you think that people need to understand about personal branding when they're trying to build their own brand?
Yeah. Firstly, I feel like I ought to cry after you saying all those lovely things. So thank you, Saz. I walk the talk. I believe in personal branding. And having just talked to you about my story, because there's no time to waste. We just need to get on with it, because you don't know when life is going to end or our capabilities are going to be taken away from us. So personal branding is all about getting success making, fast, furious, and don't waste time with it. And people buy people. And therefore, we need to be able to show people what we stand for and who we are, because pretty much whether you're a big telco and you're on the phone to someone, you're going to buy whether that person is kind and good on the phone. And whether we go to a greengrocers or whether we're in business to business or business to consumer, at the end of the day, when we walk into a shop, it's how you're treated that reflects on that brand. So I think it's all about individuals. And I want to make sure that it's easy for people to know what I stand for, to be able to work out whether they want to buy from me. And by the way, I'd like to know who they are, because I might not want them to be a customer of mine because they don't have the same core values. So it just makes life faster, quicker to know what your personal brand is and live it and walk the talk to get the success you want to, whether that be finding the right partner, whether that be finding the right job or finding the right customer.
How important is purpose to your business? Is there a Sharon Williams Taurus credo? Because you've talked just then about values and the things that you look for. It's like dating, like who do I want to, what qualities am I looking for in a partner? What am I looking for in business partners and people who want to work with me?
That's right. Marketing is very much like dating. I believe that. And then sales when you close the deal.
You consummate the deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Consummate the success.
Yes, business is an extension of our lives. It's no different. Not everybody out there is a Taurus customer. Not everyone out there is a Sharon Williams friend. Not everyone out there is someone I would like to have work with me. And therefore, I think it cuts to the chase quicker if you can say who you are and what you stand for to attract the right people out there and not the people that aren't attracted to you. Because life is really tough when you're not in the right corporate cultural fit. It really makes business and personal lives difficult when you're not core value aligned. So I get up every morning to build people, brands, businesses, and hopefully dreams. So I build people, brands, businesses. If you're working with me and I can't build you as a person, I can't build your brand, and I can't build your business and your dream, then you're not for me and you're not for my company. And what we've got to do is separate those people out quickly so we don't waste time in the wrong association.
Are there any marketing campaigns that stand out to you when we're talking about values and that you're very proud of?
This is an interesting one. Jesus All About Life. I had the Bible Society come to me a few years back, and I said a prayer on the Sunday night that I could do with a bit more revenue before year end. And one of those, on your knees moments. And the next day, the phone rang, and it was Daniel Willis from the Bible Society. And he said, look, you're the girl. We want to hire you. We need to do a launch of a new campaign, Jesus All About Life. And if you think about it, the Bible is a book. It distributes through. I'm a B2B girl. The book is the product. It distributes through distributors, churches, to end users, Christians or non-Christians, and it's a book. And it's a book from a thought leader, Jesus. So the job was to get people just talking about Jesus and understanding who he was. And I get that. We do that for our tech leaders and other leaders. And so I said to them, look, I'm really not a religious marketer. I don't really want to do this. And I don't think you've come to the right place. But he said, no, you're the one. So he came in on the Friday and we workshopped our Bullseye strategy. And we agreed that if we weren't the right fit, he could go home at lunchtime. And I knew he would go away with some value. But if we were the right fit, he'd hire us and we'd move on. And he did. And 12 weeks later, we had 25,000 on Facebook from a zero start. We had 500 pieces of coverage. We had the pink sandstorm hit the day we launched. I must have said a prayer on that one. And it was such a successful campaign that it's now taught in universities. And I think that was a core value. I didn't have one Christian on my staffing. They were all atheists and Buddhists, and yet we took this on as a core value alignment that we were talking about someone that could be respected as a thought leader. It wasn't whether you were religious or Christian or whoever. It was someone that was a thought leader who should be listened to in any other way than Buddha or Mother Teresa and I now say that if I can do a 2,000-year-old intangible who I can't front up for media interviews, and I can win a golden target and get that story taught in universities, and I can do anything.
So when you're talking about core values, what do you look for with your staff?
Yeah, so we, transparency, very much the Taurus values, transparency, loyalty, tenacity, the ability to call a spade a spade. Not many people can do that. Not many people can actually say what they're thinking in a graceful way. People who believe in the cause. We are building people, brands and businesses. So we're not just building a brand, we're building the people within the company we work for to be successful, which I'm hugely proud of. Like every day, I'm so proud of all those people that we've built who've been through the Taurus experience and are now in top places.
Troy Douglas, who was on our podcast
Troy.
From Nextbar,
Yeah.
the founder of Nextbar, he had glowing things to say about you.
Thank you. Well, that's the vision.
You were a mentor for him.
That's so lovely. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're taking people and taking them on their dreams and building dreams. And so if someone's not sure, well, it's not even if someone's not sure. It's if they can't listen and they can't take advice, it's not going to work. They don't have to do everything I say. But I've tried and tested 1,000 interns, 1,000 brands, people that we've mentored are high up in Canva, the Secret Service.
We're not meant to know that, are we?
Yeah, like so exciting, like the top of their game. It's not about marketing. It's about building those journeys and making those people and brands and businesses more successful. And it is about choosing them carefully because you're going to go into a marriage, and marriage is fraught with risks and ups and downs.
And you want the children that come out of the marriage to not be damaged and traumatized. And you want them to go off and be successful themselves.
That's right. And we have the most extraordinary relationships with our customers. So it's always about the people. It's always about the build. It's always about building the dreams and the businesses. And yes, at the center of our Bullseye methodology is money, because you can't build anything, a charity or anything, or do anything without money. So everything we do is about building dollars for that entity, whether it's Clean Up Australia as a charity, or violet.org, which is a bereavement counselling service, or an ASX listed company, it's got to be about the dollars.
So you talk about building people and businesses and brands. So what would your advice be to small business owners that are trying to build their brand?
Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is really up to date. That's the best thing you can do. Like, if that's the one thing that everyone takes away from this podcast, please get your LinkedIn profile as good as it can possibly be, and spend some time actually working LinkedIn and making contacts, because it's the people that will open doors to your success. It'll be the people who lift you. It's very hard trying to build a business one sale at a time. So find people who will give you 1,000 sales and lift you into partnerships that will elevate you. And so personal brand and your website and your social media. They're your little staples, your little toolkit of being able to build your brand. And your LinkedIn profile should look like your website, should look like how you're dressed, how you speak, and how you present yourself, so that you can accelerate on that journey, on that Formula One racetrack, which is what you're on if you're going to go and become a business. Then we want you going as fast as you can with as little traction slowing you down. Just speed, get there fast.
You want it all to align, don't you? Because if it doesn't align, then when people see the message, they're like, it's not quite right.
Yes. So to your question about marketing, being on brand is really important.
And people need to see it in a number of different ways. And
right.
We've got all this talk. Omnichannel is another word that I want banned, because I just keep on seeing it everywhere. Everyone loves to say, your omnichannel marketing strategy, which is really just a simple way of just saying, well, you should be marketing everywhere anyway, well, I guess it depends on what your kind of business is, but people are going to see your brand, whether they're seeing it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, your website, maybe you're appearing on a TV show, maybe you're appearing on an online show. There's so many different touch points. Maybe you're on the side of a bus, there are so many different touch points for a brand, and yet, you need it to all be very consistent.
Yes, I love that. I mean, our listeners have just got all the things they can do from you with their marketing tactics.
It was all you. It was all you, Sharon.
And it's about being authentic, isn't it? It's about, if you're authentic on every channel, then you're going to get your brand out there faster. And what you want to do is be put in front of the right people, and not waste time being put in front of the people that won't be your customers, or won't be buying, or won't be coming to work for you. It's about being fit for purpose, captain of your personal brand, and doing business on purpose, with purpose, and not letting it just happen by accident.
Now, just to wrap up, 26 years, it's a long, long time to be at the helm of a business. What do you think has been the key to Taurus's longevity, and what advice would you have for other businesses about playing the long game?
Yeah, I think lots of our friends out there will resonate that we've got to pay bills, so there's no chance to give up. I've wanted the best life for my children, which has always motivated me and my team. So building the life I want has kept me going. Building people and brands has kept me going. And you know what? If you love what you do, it's not work. I love what I do. So proud of my company, and so proud of my people and my team. That $1 million question, what would you do if you won $1 billion? Well, I'm sure I'd still come into work because I love it. And I absolutely am so proud to be part of this entity that has been created, that, by the way, operates without me, because the team are amazing. So, yeah, you got to love it. I think if you do something you love, it happens all by itself. With a lot of hard work.
And great holidays in the midst of it all to reward
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes.
That's important.
Quarterly holidays.
I have my quarterly holidays with my babies. And you know what I also do? Staycations. Because I'm still a tourist, I still go and stay in hotels, maybe just one night, wait for the specials. And then I cannot get over I live in this town and this country. I am just such a fan of where we are. And so to be able to go and have a night off and experience a different place, that gives you a little micro break, which has been very important through the pandemic.
Yeah, it's absolutely important. When you think about mental health, we talk about, just doing those things to make yourself feel a bit, just give yourself a bit of spring in your step.
That's right. Change is good.
Change is good.
Change is good.
That is a fantastic note to end on. All glass half full once again. Sharon Williams, thank you so much for joining us. Head to sharonwilliams.com or taurusmarketing.com.au for more info about today's fabulous success maker. Don't forget to give this podcast a 5-star review if you've enjoyed this chat. And thanks for listening. Join us next week for another fantastic First Act conversation. Bye-bye.